Drones. Cheap, relatively slow, and in numbers like these, impossible to stop completely. Over the last 48 hours, Iran carried out what this script describes as the largest coordinated drone assault in the recorded history of modern warfare. 2,000 Shahed suicide drones were launched simultaneously against Tel Aviv, Haifa, and 3 American military installations across the region. Israel's air defenses, the most sophisticated ever built by any nation, destroyed hundreds of them, but not all. It never gets all of them, and that is the point. Because this was never about one drone. It was about saturation, about pressure, about forcing even the most advanced defensive shield on Earth to fail by sheer volume. Now Tel Aviv is burning, and the U.S. The Navy, 2 carrier strike groups, representing $30 billion in warships, has turned around and withdrawn from the Persian Gulf. If you want to understand what this moment actually means, not the headlines, but the real strategic architecture shifting beneath them, subscribe now and hit the notification bell. This story is moving faster than the news cycle can track, and you'll want to be here for every development as it breaks. Let that image settle for a moment. The United States did not withdraw from Afghanistan this way. It did not pull back from Iraq this way. But today in the Persian Gulf, the American Navy made a calculation so sobering that veteran military analysts in Washington are struggling to find adequate language for it. This is not a flare-up. This is not another round of regional escalation that gets managed and forgotten. What happened in the last 48 hours is a fundamental transformation of the Middle East security landscape, of American power projection, and of every assumption the world has carried about who controls the skies above the most strategically vital waters on Earth. Here is the piece that isn't being said clearly enough yet. This was not a spontaneous decision. Iran did not improvise this. Coordinating the simultaneous launch of 2,000 drones from dispersed positions across Iran, Iraq, and Yemen requires months of preparation, logistics, pre-positioning, timing, calibration down to the second. This was rehearsed. This was gamed out in advance. Iran knew precisely what it was building toward. And the conclusion that should unsettle every military planner from the Pentagon to Tel Aviv to Riyadh is straightforward. It worked. Not flawlessly, not completely, but enough. Enough to put out fires in Tel Aviv, enough to drain Israeli interceptor stockpiles faster than they could be replenished, enough to persuade 2 American carrier strike groups, each carrying more combined firepower than the entire militaries of most nations, that remaining in the Persian Gulf was no longer a survivable position. The moment American carriers vacate a theater, American power vacates with them. That is the outcome Iran has spent 2 decades engineering. Let's break down exactly how they got here. To grasp why this strike is categorically different from anything preceding it, you need to understand what 2,000 drones actually represent as a weapon system. The Shahed 136 was the primary instrument Iran deployed. It goes by several names: suicide drone, loitering munition, kamikaze drone, and all of them are accurate. It flies toward a designated target and then becomes the warhead. And there's no pilot to protect, there's no aircraft to recover. It is a one-way system designed around a single purpose: overwhelming defensive networks through sheer volume. Taken in isolation, a Shahed 136 is not a fearsome weapon. Its radar cross-section is small but detectable. Its cruising speed, approximately 185 kilometers per hour, is slow by any military measure. A single Shahed approaching a defended position is almost certainly going to be shot down. But that framing misses the point entirely, because that is not how you employ them. You employ them in waves and swarms, converging on multiple targets from dozens of simultaneous approach vectors. You don't send 2,000 drones at one location. You send 2,000 drones at 20 locations from 100 different directions at exactly the same moment. Here's what that does to any defensive architecture. Israel's Iron Dome is exceptional. David's Sling is exceptional. The Arrow 3 system is exceptional. But every one of those platforms shares one critical vulnerability that Iran has spent years studying with extraordinary care: interceptor magazine depth. Iron Dome batteries hold roughly 20 interceptors apiece. David's Sling carries more, but the number is finite. When incoming volume forces those batteries to fire faster than reload cycles allow, when the simultaneous wave exceeds the total magazine capacity of every networked battery at once, the arithmetic turns decisively against the defender. Iran did not attempt to defeat Israeli air defenses through superior technology. It defeated them through mathematics. Saturate the network with enough simultaneous threats, and even the finest air defense system on the planet exhausts its missiles before it exhausts its targets. The drones that penetrate aren't evidence of a technology failure. They are the inevitable product of arithmetic. And Iran spent 20 years and a supply chain running through North Korea and Russia to stockpile the numbers needed to make that arithmetic work. Consider what that figure means in practical terms. 2,000 drones, even at a 90% intercept rate, which would represent a remarkable defensive performance, still produces 200 successful strikes. 200 simultaneous explosions across Tel Aviv, Haifa, and 3 American military installations in a single night. That is not a strike in any conventional sense. That is a compressed campaign delivered in one coordinated action. The targeting in Tel Aviv was not indiscriminate. Reports surfacing over the past several hours indicate that drone swarms were directed at three distinct categories of infrastructure. First, power and communications nodes, electrical substations, cell towers, fiber routing infrastructure. The same systematic playbook Russia applied against Ukraine's grid, but collapsed from a 2-year campaign into a single night. Large sections of northern Tel Aviv are reporting total power loss. Emergency generators are running, but generators consume fuel, and fuel has limits. Second, transportation choke points. Ben Gurion International Airport has suspended all operations, not because the terminal itself was struck, but because drone activity in the approach and departure corridors makes flight operations impossible. Israel is now effectively severed from rapid international resupply by air. Every replacement interceptor missile, every emergency logistics shipment, every Allied rapid deployment asset, all of it moved through Ben Gurion. That channel is closed. Third, and perhaps most consequential in the long run, the psychological target, Tel Aviv itself. Buildings burning in a city whose population had come to believe it was protected. Air raid sirens running for hours without pause. Millions of people are sheltering in place. An Iron Dome, the defining symbol of Israeli security, the system that gave an entire society its sense of safety, visibly struggling, not collapsing, not defeated, but visibly strained. And everyone watching could see the gaps. That visibility is itself a weapon layered inside the physical one. Iran's objective was not purely structural damage. It was for Israeli civilians to watch their defensive shield labor under pressure, to witness the seams, to internalize that the protection they had trusted had boundaries. Because once a population's confidence in its defensive architecture erodes, the psychological damage outlasts the physical destruction by years. Before we get into why the carrier groups left and what that decision genuinely signals about American power in the region, if you're finding this analysis valuable, now is a good time to subscribe and leave a like. The situation is evolving by the hour, and having notifications on means you won't be behind when the next major development lands. Now the carriers. This is the moment that will occupy historians. The USS Gerald R. Ford and the USS Harry S. Truman, two United States carrier strike groups, have repositioned out of the Persian Gulf. From the Pentagon's official framing, this is tactical repositioning. Military analysts are using different languages. A carrier strike group is worth understanding in full. It is not simply an aircraft carrier. It is a carrier escorted by 2 guided missile cruisers, 4 guided missile destroyers, an attack submarine, and a logistics vessel. It carries between 65 and 75 aircraft and projects American air power across a 700-kilometer radius from wherever it operates. It is the physical embodiment of American global military reach. For 8 decades, deploying carriers to a region has been Washington's unambiguous signal. We are present, we are watching, and escalation will carry consequences you cannot absorb. Iran just answered that signal directly. The military logic behind the repositioning is not complicated, but it is stark. The Persian Gulf is not open water. It is a narrow, enclosed body, roughly 989 kilometers in length, averaging 240 kilometers across, narrowing to just 33 kilometers at the Strait of Hormuz. That geography is severely disadvantageous for carrier operations against an adversary possessing Iran's current anti-ship arsenal. Iran fields 3 categories of anti-ship weapons that together produce what military strategists call an anti-access area denial environment, A2AD, making carrier operations inside the Gulf extremely high risk. First, the Noor anti-ship missile, Chinese-designed, Iranian-manufactured, 170-kilometer range, with a sea-skimming flight profile that keeps it just meters above the water surface to defeat radar detection until engagement windows are nearly closed. Iran has hundreds positioned along its coastline. Second, the Khalij Fars ballistic anti-ship missile, the weapon that fundamentally altered the threat calculus. A ballistic missile engineered specifically to strike moving vessels with a 300-kilometer range that approaches from above, creating a completely different threat vector from sea-skimming missiles. Defensive systems aboard carrier strike groups must now simultaneously manage threats arriving from the horizon and from directly overhead. No carrier group in history has confronted that combined threat envelope inside an enclosed body of water. If this analysis gives you a clearer picture of what the headlines are actually describing, subscribe if you haven't already and give this video a like. What follows next, Israel's response, America's strategic decision, Iran's next move, will shape this region for a generation. We'll be covering every development as it happens with the same level of depth you just watched. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Can Israel and the United States restore meaningful deterrence after tonight, or has the regional balance of power shifted in a way that won't be reversed? That conversation matters. We'll see you in the next.